Hello, and welcome to our first episode of Under Your Feet. In addition to our weekly true stories of Manchester's dark and sometimes mysterious past, I'll be doing stories from sites I have been on or learnt about during my time working as an archaeologist. When walking around modern cities, most people have no idea what still lies below their feet. So first we'll start with Cross Street in Manchester. In 2015, the very busy city centre street was excavated to make way for the installation of a new part of the Metrolink, which is Manchester's tram public transport network. In the 1600s, this area was still wild meadows called Pool Fold, and Reverend Henry Newcomb and his followers were in need of a larger house of worship. They purchased a plot of land here called Pludgeon's Meadow, and on the 24th of June 1694 a red brick chapel was opened named St. Pludgeon's Chapel. It was a non-conformist church with mostly supporters of the Hanoverian royal line, which led to the chapel being damaged during the Jacobite rebellions. The chapel was restored, but would unfortunately meet its end, as would a large number of Manchester's historic buildings, under the vast number of German bombs on the 23rd of December 1940 during World War II. But the stubborn Mancunians still held services in the burnt out ruins of the chapel until it was rebuilt after the war. St. Pludgeon's Chapel, which would become Cross Street, also has a cemetery. That is what in 2015 the archaeologists would excavate in order to make way for the tram lines. What they found was some 270 human remains that had been laid under the road all these years. The bodies exhumed were sent to be studied by a specialist at York University, hoping to glean vital signs into the life of 18th century Manchester. These were later reinterred at Southern Cemetery in Chorlton. Sadly, not all the names of these people who were exhumed have been located in the records. Some of the remains were laid to rest in unmarked graves. But it is very difficult to locate all remains and retrieve all the remains in their entirety, so the chances are there's still some that lie beneath your feet on Cross Street. Next, we move to Victoria train station, one of Manchester's train stations, which was built on top of a 150-year-old site, Walker's Croft Burial Ground. Victoria train station occupies Walker's Croft. There are still some remains visible from the site Victoria train station occupies. Walker's Croft Tunnel can still be seen, with big metal gates that hide the route from the original road that runs by the side of the River Irk. Walker's Croft itself was a cemetery and chapel, linked with Manchester Union Workhouse, and the route is connected to Long Millgate by a wooden bridge. The burial ground belonged to the Collegiate Church, which is now Manchester Cathedral, and there was up to 40,000 burials here. The cemetery lies beneath the Metrolink tram platforms, with the workhouse on the north side of the station, overlapping the arena. The Manchester Union Workhouse was intended for 400 inmates, but was unable to cope with the increase of demand, and ran out of space, unable to extend due to the building of Victoria train station. The workhouse moved to Crumpsall, buying 45 acres of land that belonged to the Bongs estate, a Tudor farm, and this new workhouse later became the offices for North Manchester Hospital. Workhouses were not places that people wanted to be, and only the poorest of society who had no other options were generally the kinds of people who would be found there. As a result, Walker's Croft was a place where those who died would be interred, which leading to human remains lying in mass paupers' graves, and also hundreds of poor families, many of whom had fallen victim to the Victorian cholera epidemic. It was purchased by business magnate Samuel Brooks in 1839 for the Manchester and Leeds Railway. The station was completed 5 years later, but with the rush to get the work finished and society's different views of the time meant when the workers were building the foundations, they only removed the parts of the remains that were in the way, and they left the rest where they were. That was until 2013, when a £27 million redevelopment work at Victoria train station began. As part of planning permission, archaeologists were required to exhume the Walker's Croft Cemetery, and Network Rail issued a public statement that they will treat the matter with all due care and attention to decency. They built screens to prevent passengers and passers-by from seeing the graves being disturbed, and any personal belongings that were found with the graves were also removed and then reinterred with the remains in the Southern Cemetery. All the remains that could be located from Walker's Croft burial ground were exhumed, placed in coffins and taken to Southern Cemetery in Charlton. But there still might be some undiscovered, or in areas making it impossible to retrieve, remains. Around 50 years after the construction of Victoria train station, an Act of Parliament made it illegal to build on disused burial grounds. And finally, to All Saints Park on Oxford Road, a little patch of green in a sprawling city, is often populated with students from neighbouring Manchester Metropolitan University, sunbathing, reading, or having a quiet place to eat lunch. But this patch of greenery was once the burial ground for the parishioners of All Saints Church, whose first interment was 21-year-old Fanny Knowles, who lived on London Road, and by the end of the 19th century, the burial ground was in a state of disrepair and neglect, with sunken graves, broken headstones, flooding and debris from Oxford Road scattering across the ground. And with the help of Manchester Centre of Public History and Heritage and the Manchester Central Library Archives, teams have discovered burial records of over 16,000 people who were interred here, and the records show that the remains have not been removed. And with sites like this with the records, we know with some certainty that walking the city streets of Manchester, the dead from the past are not very far away. I hope you enjoyed the first episode of Under Your Feet, giving you an idea of what lies below while you walk along minding your own business. If there is anything you want me to look at, let me know in the comments below. And if you're new here, don't forget to like and subscribe. And check out my true dark and mysterious stories every Wednesday. Thank you for your support, and take care.